Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking an actual, real-life spy thriller. We were looking at a single, highly controversial intelligence operation from way back in 1953 that fundamentally altered global politics. And the crazy thing? There were no massive armies involved, no full-scale invasions. We're talking just shadows, secrets, and a quiet coup that permanently reshaped the Middle East. Honestly, if you want to understand why our world looks the way it does today, you absolutely have to understand Operation Ajax.
So let's dive right in with a massive what if. What if one single secret operation changed the future of the entire Middle East? Because we're talking about a very real CIA mission here that didn't rely on dropping bombs or deploying thousands of troops. Instead, they used completely unconventional tactics to quietly, efficiently overthrow a sovereign government. I know, it sounds exactly like the plot of some Hollywood movie, right? But as our sources show, this was very, very real, and the consequences of it are literally still echoing through our modern geopolitical landscape. Now, the weapons of choice here, they weren't tanks or fighter jets. We're talking about spies, actual briefcases stuffed with secret money and what we probably call today fake news. This entire operation was built from the ground up on manipulation, influence, and intense strategic pressure. And because of that, it sparked these massive debates about sovereignty and foreign intervention that historians and policymakers are still arguing about today.
Part 1. The Cold War Chessboard.
To really grasp why Operation Ajax completely changed history, we've got to jump back and look at the incredibly intense geopolitical climate right after World War II. It was a time that completely redefined global alliances. The globe had basically split right down the middle into two impossibly powerful rivals, the United States and the Soviet Union. And because they were locked in this Cold War, completely paranoid about the other side gaining even an inch, every single nation suddenly became a critical piece on a high-stakes global chessboard. Staying neutral? Yeah, that was a luxury almost no country could afford.
And Iran? Well, they attracted some very special attention on this chessboard. Why? Massive oil reserves. But there was a really big catch here. At the time, a huge chunk of Iran's oil industry was completely controlled by the British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. Naturally, a lot of Iranians looked at this setup and felt deeply, deeply exploited. They firmly believed their country wasn't getting anywhere near a fair share of the profits from their own natural resources.
Part 2. A bold move for oil.
So all that widespread frustration among the Iranian public, it inevitably paved the way for a crucial turning point. In 1951, Iran's newly elected, wildly popular prime minister, Mohammad Mosaddegh, made a historic decision. And this one move would basically set a very dangerous geopolitical machine into motion, triggering a chain of events that no one could have fully predicted.
Mosaddegh made the massive call to nationalize the oil industry. Basically, that meant the Iranian government, not foreign corporations, was going to call the shots on their oil production and, more importantly, keep the profits. Obviously, this completely thrilled the Iranian citizens. They celebrated in the streets. But on the flip side, it sparked an absolute economic and political meltdown from Britain, who relied heavily on that oil and completely rejected the change.
And it wasn't just Britain flipping out. The United States was getting incredibly nervous too. See, British economic pressure was causing some severe tension in Iran, and American officials were terrified that this instability was going to hand the Soviet Union the perfect opportunity to swoop right in and grab a massive foothold in the Middle East. You have to remember, during the Cold War, letting the Soviets control a major oil-producing nation was basically the West's ultimate nightmare scenario.
Part 3. Executing Operation Ajax.
That intense, almost paranoid fear of Soviet expansion pushed the CIA and British intelligence to actually team up in 1953. Their objective was simple on paper, but incredibly dangerous to pull off: quietly remove Prime Minister Mosaddegh from power and strengthen the authority of the Shah of Iran, who they viewed as way more friendly to Western interests. Again, no military invasion here, just a quiet, completely internal regime change.
The covert playbook they used was, frankly, ruthless. We're talking massive orchestrated propaganda campaigns specifically designed to smear Mosaddegh. They coordinated directly with local political dissidents and, get this, they literally bought protests, financing street gangs to stage violently chaotic demonstrations in the capital. By applying insane pressure on key decision-makers inside the Iranian military, they successfully manufactured days of absolute political chaos. And it worked. They forced Mosaddegh out and handed the Shah much stronger control.
Part 4. The Illusion of Success.
In the immediate aftermath, if you were a Western policymaker sitting in Washington or London, this operation looked like an absolute masterclass in covert action. I mean, the immediate results checked every single box. Iran stayed firmly aligned with the West during the Cold War, that vital flow of oil started up again under favorable terms, and Soviet influence was completely blocked out. To the intelligence agencies involved, this was a total undisputed victory.
Part 5. The Historical Blowback. But as we know, history almost never ends with the immediate outcome, right? To really get why this event reshaped the world, we have to look impartially at the Iranian perspective. Because for decades, under the Shah's Western-backed rule, domestic resentment was just boiling over. Citizens were deeply angry about what they viewed as unacceptable foreign interference in their country's democratic process. And those long-term consequences, they proved to be incredibly complex and far-reaching.
It's honestly the perfect historical butterfly effect. Look at how this progresses. You've got the oil nationalization in 1951, which triggers the covert response of Operation Ajax in 1953. But that secret intervention? It directly planted the seeds of deep-seated anger that ended up exploding 26 years later. In 1979, the massive Iranian Revolution swept through and completely overthrew the Shah.
That 1979 revolution completely shattered relations between the US and Iran. In fact, many historians point straight back to Operation Ajax as the foundational factor for the decades of hostility we still see today. It just goes to show that this single intelligence operation wasn't some localized one-off event. It permanently shifted the entire geopolitical alignment of the Middle East.
Part 6. The Declassified Mystery.
For decades, the actual mechanics and the true extent of Western involvement in this coup were kept totally in the shadows, mostly just brushed off as rumors or unconfirmed reports. But eventually the truth usually comes to light. 6 decades later, in 2013, declassified documents officially acknowledged the CIA's directing role in the coup. That formal admission basically cemented Operation Ajax in the history books as the ultimate example of how secret intelligence decisions can alter the destiny of entire nations.
So we've seen how one single secret mission in 1953 managed to fundamentally change the world, proving that history isn't just shaped by huge, open battles on a field somewhere, but by quiet decisions made in the shadows. And that leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought to consider as we wrap up this explainer. When you weigh the immediate short-term goals against that massive long-term historical blowback, can covert operations ever truly be justified if they're meant to prevent larger conflicts? It's a heavy question, and honestly one that history is still trying to answer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and thanks so much for joining me to unpack the source material today.